A pleasant day to you, grade 11 learners. It is my pleasure to take you through this discussion of Geography Paper 2 for grade 11 in preparation for the final examinations that are coming in the next few days. Right, we are going to use this sample paper to discuss and go through typical examination questions, which we're going to come in our paper 2 examinations for the end of year. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by highlighting on the nature of the paper. Our paper, remember, paper 2 is a full examination paper, which is comprised of 2 sections. And those 2 sections are made up of 3 questions. And that examination is a total of 150 marks and is supposed to be administered and be written in 3 hours time. So checking through the content covered by the paper, we have section A, which is comprising of 2 questions. Question number 1 is development geography. Then question number 2 is resources and sustainability. Then we have question 3, which is based on the geographical skills and techniques, which is our map. That's the setup of question paper 2 for Geography grade 11. So without wasting much time, we have to go through the questions and try to discuss and figure out how best we can answer those questions. Right, question 1, development. It shows the north and south divide through the Brent line. You can see the world being divided into 2, the more economically developed north and the less economically developed south. Right, we are going to use that to answer the question. We are going to answer as quick as is possible. Right, developing countries based on economic and social criteria. They are developing countries based on economic and social criteria. Developing in this instance, can you note the difference between developed and developing? Developing countries, where do we locate them according to the Brand line on the social criteria and economic criteria? With X, we find them south of the Brand line. Brazil, India, and South Africa are considered newly industrializing countries. They are emerging countries in terms of industrialization. All right, moving on to the next question. Is saying employment structure in more economically developed countries. Which typical employment structure we find? We have more in the tertiary sector if an economy is developed and less in the primary sector. This is a developing country which has more of primary sector and less of tertiary sector. So Z is the correct response for that one. Right. The population pyramid typical of a less economically developed country. What typical population pyramid do we find for a less? We have that one with a wider base and a regressive top. The proportion of people living in urban areas in more economically developed countries. We are comparing to rural areas. In this instance, we are saying it's Z. A more economically developed country has got a larger population in urban areas and a fewer population in the rural areas. Then number 6, a factor that would contribute positively to a country's Human Development Index. What is an aspect of the HDI? It's higher literacy rates. A country that has got a Gini coefficient score close to 1, a Gini coefficient which is close to 1, what does it imply? It implies that there is income inequality. Then the last question, number 8, an economic indicator that measures the overall economic performance of a country. An economic indicator, that is the gross domestic product. Right, that was the first part. We're going to the next part. It's multiple choice. Country X has a negative balance of trade because. Why does it have a negative balance? We are comparing export value against import value. It only has a negative balance when the imports are greater than the exports. We are seeing that the imports have got more weight compared to the exports. So if we say the value of X minus M, it is going to give us a negative value because your X is smaller compared to a larger M. We import more than we export, so we have a negative balance of trade. Right, liquid number question 122. It says the country that has got the biggest trade surplus. trade surplus there, which one has got the biggest trade surplus if you are to look at those countries? United Kingdom, India, Russia, and China. We are to compare those countries, and we can safely say that the largest trade balance is with China, which is A. India has got a negative, and UK has got a negative, while Russia has got a positive 233, and China has got a positive 401, which is the largest trade surplus. Right, number 1, 2, 3. SADC talks about SADC. What does SADC stand for? SADC stands for Southern African Development Community. A key economic benefit of SADC's free trade agreements. What is the benefit of free trade agreements? It enhances access to international market. Then fair trade is a type of trading relationship based on the principle of, when you're talking of fair trade, we have free trade and we have fair trade. Fair trade, how does it operate? We are dealing with the producers of the products in this instance, and we need to hold transparency and accountability in the supply chain. So our response is B. Financial assistance from the government to help local businesses compete against foreign imports. What do we use to make local businesses competitive compared to the international businesses? We use a subsidy so that they can lower their cost of production and be able to supply products at a relatively comparable prices to the international prices. Right, number 7, the main difference between a tariff and an import quota. What is the difference there? A tariff taxes on imports, that's very correct. Import quotas limit quantity of imports. Yes, we take that. It's also very correct. Tariffs are taxes on exports. That is wrong. Import quotas encourage more imports. That is wrong. So item 3 is wrong. Item 4 is wrong. We only remain with these 2 items. Where are they grouped? Item 1 and 2, they are grouped on response A. That takes us to the end of question 1.2. Move on to question 1.3. Is based on empowering rural communities, investing in women. That is an issue of gender equality. Right, we are going to go through the questions and just refer to the text where there is need for us to look at the response. What is community development? When you are looking at community development, what is community development? Community development. When you are referring to community development, what are we saying? The idea of community development is the development for the people. By who? By the people. It's development for the people by the very same people. Or we can say it's a collaborative approach to development. By community members with the aid of relevant stakeholders. When we are engaged in community development, we are worried about our very own development as a community. We're not worried about the government taking charge of our development. We must make initiatives to try and develop our own lives in our very own communities. So it's our development by us as a community. That is community development approach. Right. Taking the next question, why are women important to community development? Why are women important? The importance of women in community development. Right, when you're looking at the role of women in community development, why is the rationale or the importance of women? Right, we are looking at promotion of equality. The aspect of equality, women, they bring in the aspect of gender equality and is useful for meaningful development. We cannot have development with bias towards one gender. It brings about meaningful development. If we engage women, there is equality and we have the aspect of meaningful development. And also, if you look at the idea, most families are headed by women. Women as heads of households, they are engaged in development. They must be involved in the development process because most of them, they are head of households. So we cannot exclude them. And also we are looking at a diverse perspective. Instead of us looking at the perspective of males only, the women, they also bring a diversification to the perspective of towards development. And also we can look at the women as primary caregivers. Women are the primary caregivers responsible for the welfare of the family. So they must be involved in the development process. We cannot exclude them. And also, if we look at it, it's an inclusive policy. It engages inclusivity because women, in most instances, they had been marginalized. They had not been afforded an equal chance. So we need to involve them for the sake of doing away with the issue of marginalization of women in development processes. Right. Then the next question. According to the extract, why do rural women bear the largest burden of poverty? Why do they bear the largest burden of poverty? The main factor contributing to the poverty of rural women include low literacy and also the issue of skills and training and poor access to services, especially healthcare. That is why they have the burden. They have got low literacy. Some of them, they can't read and write, and also they don't have skills, and also they lack access to facilities and services, as shown. Right. Then the next question is saying, the WYRE initiative provides women with, is it physical or human capital? When we're talking of human capital, we're looking at development of skills. It says the Women, Youth and Rural Entrepreneurship Initiatives aim to strengthen the KZN rural and farming communities. Its goal is to build productive and sustainable family livelihoods. It also, women often have different needs than men, also societal standing, as well as continuing imbalance in the division of labor and managing of undertaking domestic tasks, such as, right, so basically this is focused on the human capital. Human capital is basically the development of the skill in the human being, the development of some form of education, which is going to assist towards the developmental process. If you are equipped with the right knowledge, the right skill, then it is possible for us to get our communities developed through the usage of that human capital. Right, how will agricultural training help alleviate poverty in rural communities? Agriculture is going to assist in improved productivity. If we have agricultural productivity, it means people will have food security, which is a quality life. And also, we can look at, it leads to diversification of crops. We can grow a variety of crops that will ensure that we have sufficient food and we are guaranteed of a supply of food and a healthy life. And also, we can look at income. It also assists in income gains. If we produce more than what we can consume, then we can sell and get income. And then we can also look at agribusinesses, potential of agribusinesses. Communities can be engaged in agribusinesses. Businesses involving agricultural productivity and the sale of the outcome of the productivity in agriculture. I then explain why our initiatives hopes to empower women to become entrepreneur leaders in agriculture throughout the continent. But we are looking at the aspect of women here, the role of women, and also their significance in society. Why is it that we need to empower women to become entrepreneur leaders in agriculture throughout? It is going to help in improving the yields because women are dedicated in their jobs. If they are into agriculture, then they are full-time into agriculture. And also we can look at aspects like marketing and sales will be enhanced through the usage of women in that particular sector. It is going to be a contributing factor. And then we can also look at diversification of products. It can also assist if women are entrepreneurs, they can also facilitate the diversification in the agricultural sector towards the production of a wide variety of some products. And also if you can look at networking, they can also facilitate networking with and working with other partners for the benefit of the agricultural sector. So basically, we are looking at the capability of women and how they can transform the agricultural sector. State one factor evident that enables the sharing of knowledge. We are looking at globalization. Sharing of knowledge, how is it possible? Right, the sharing of knowledge is made possible. In this instance, we can talk of the internet. Internet connection, or we can talk of digital technology, or we can talk of communication networks, or we can also look at social media platforms. Those are some of the means which enables the sharing of knowledge. How we have modern transportation systems in B, those forms of transport, increased globalization of trade. Those forms of transport, they are efficient and they are cheaper, which means that transportation is easier. And also they have increased access. They have helped us to get increased access to places across the world. And also we can look at larger quantities of goods which can be transported. Look at the cargo ships, look at the cargo planes. They are able to transport larger quantities of commodities for the export market. And also we can look at a wide selection of transport modes. Explain how liberalization of trade encouraged by globalization present challenges for local businesses. Trade liberalization provides a challenge for local businesses. The major challenge is that of competition. Local businesses are exposed to unfair competition from developed businesses in the developed world, such that they cannot compete. And also it leads to the problem of dumping in the local market. Look at problems like things of in this issue of saturation of the market. The market will be oversaturated such that consumers no longer be able to buy extra products. And also we can look at consumer choices, biased consumer choices. The challenges. Consumer choices will be biased towards foreign products. And at the end, they will shun local products and not buy from the local market. And at the end, it's going to pose a challenge for the local businesses because of the bias in the consumer prices. Competitive pressures in terms of price, like what we mentioned as dumping there. Right, what potential environmental problems are associated with increased globalization? Globalization provides with itself typical environmental problems. So we want to look at environmental. The interconnectedness of the globe is brought about with its environmental problems. Right, problems that we face, which are environmental, talk of things like carbon emissions. They have increased. We now have a problem of increased carbon emissions because of the excessive use of transport modes and also of production of goods and services. Talk of problems of deforestation. Because of the increased demand, we are overutilizing our forest resources. Talk of overexploitation of resources. Because of the wide market, we tend to overexploit resources to supply on the international market. We look at environmental degradation. We are overusing the soil and not taking care of it because we want to maximize agricultural productivity. We can look at other things like overfishing as a problem. Or we can look at aspects of global warming. Those are typical environmental problems which are brought by the problem of globalization. Right. Then we move on to the next question. It's talking about foreign aid. according to the extract, what is the purpose of foreign aid? Right, wealthier nations are promoting economic growth and alleviating poverty and enhancing the people's quality of life. Those are the aims or the purpose. What factors, as indicated in the cartoon, hinder the success of foreign aid? What factors hinder? Right, we have this problem that are highlighted here. We have graft, we have crime, we have corruption, we have waste, we have the issue of dictators, we have theft. Those are what are indicated there. Why does the conditional aid not necessarily benefit the recipient country's population? We are looking at aid that comes with conditions here. So it's not beneficial because there is a hidden agenda behind. The one providing aid seeks to benefit more than whom he is assisting, so it does not benefit. The agenda may not be beneficial. Or it can also look at, it can actually result in conflict between the beneficiary and the country which is giving the aid. At the end, we cannot benefit there. And also is conditioned on some outcome, which might not be beneficial to the general public in that instance. Or it can bring about unintended consequences. Some results that we are not expecting might arise from the conditional aid. In a paragraph of 8 lines, explain how technical aid can be beneficial in eradicating poverty. Technical aid, we are looking at that kind of aid where we are supposed to be getting some technical aid, like technology development. Right, how does it benefit? When we're looking at technical aid, we want to analyze the benefit from technical aid in this instance. So we are saying it's our technical. How does it benefit? It provides skills that enhance productivity. Through education and training, we are going to acquire skills, and those skills are going to enhance productivity or employability. We are more employable. Employability. We are more likely to be employable because of the skills. It can also create jobs that will benefit the local people through the projects that will be done. The project that will be initiated will create jobs for the people. And also we can look at empowers community to solve problems. It is beneficial, it empowers communities to devise ways of solving problems. And also we can look at it being assisting in building local expertise. Local knowledge is enhanced. And also the other benefit, we can look at it in agriculture as it improves agricultural productivity, which is beneficial for the people. And those are some of the ideas that you can use to answer that particular question. You can use those ideas to relate to how beneficial technical aid might be to a given scenario. Right, that's the end of question number 1. We go to question number 2, which is resource and sustainability. We are looking at that infographic. We're going to use it to answer the question. The South African province with the largest concentration of coal mines. Largest concentration, you can check on the map. You can see that it's in Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga is the one with the largest concentration. Then the process of grinding coal into fine powder is done here, what we call pulverization. Then the heat needed for producing the steam comes from the burning of which fuel? The fuel which is burned in this instance, we burn coal. Coal is burned to produce the steam which is needed to generate, to run the turbines. The solid waste produced by power stations that accumulates in the bottom of the furnace is called the ash. Here. And the machine which turns mechanical energy into electrical energy, that's the generator. The generator, which is here. What is handled and dispersed off by the smoke stack? What is handled and dispersed by the smokestack? That is either the gases or we call it the flue. The gases or what we call the flue. Right, then we move on to number 7. It says heat removed from the steam is dissipated through which component of the power plant? Heat is dissipated through the cooling tower. The cooling tower is responsible. Adjust the voltage for long distance travel to what is generated electricity sent. That is number 8. We use that as that's a transformer's job. Right. Then we move on to the next question. It talks about thermal, solar, nuclear, and hydro energy. Right. Then our question is saying number 221, which produces radioactive waste? Radioactive waste is produced by nuclear. Is produced by nuclear, is the one that is responsible for the production of radioactive. Then we have South Africa's primary source of electricity. The primary is thermal from the burning of coal. Leading renewable energy source in South Africa. The leading is solar energy. The Harip Dam is the largest dash facility in South Africa. What kind of a facility is the Harip? Is the hydro. Then number 5, obtained by splitting uranium, that is nuclear. Requires photovoltaic, the PV installation, that is solar. Non-conventional energy source in South Africa, we are saying it's solar again. Right, move on to question 2.3. 2.3 is saying before afforestation and after afforestation, the introduction of vegetation to a given area. Right, then we have Z, that's the new area. Then we have a donga, we have the river, we have some livestock. That scenario there. What is soil erosion? That is a common geographical term. We are saying is the loss of the soil or topsoil by agents of erosion, such as wind or water, or sometimes ice. So the loss of topsoil by agents of erosion, which are water, running water, or by wind or by ice. From the sketch above, provide evidence of soil erosion. This is the evidence, the donga that you have is evidence of soil erosion. Why does overgrazing by livestock X contribute to soil erosion? If you are overgrazing, vegetation is removed. Remember, the vegetation is responsible for binding the soil. So vegetation is removed, and also the ground cover, if it's removed, it leaves the soil susceptible to wind erosion. And also you can look at the bare surface which is created. It creates a bare surface which poses a positive factor towards rain drops causing splash erosion, which is initial and apparently the growing of the gullies. Right, what are the negative economic effects of soil erosion? Negative economic effects of soil erosion. We can look at things like reduced agricultural productivity, reduced yields. If the soil is eroded, it becomes less fertile, and that will give rise to reduced yields. We can look at things like higher food prices. They can arise. We can look at aspects like increased costs of water treatment, because eroded landscapes are going to pollute water sources. So water treatment becomes expensive. We can look at other aspects under that, like it increases it causes high risk of flood damage, to infrastructure. Infrastructure will be heavily damaged because of flooding. How does the management strategy implemented at Z prevent soil erosion? At Z, what is happening at Z? Afforestation. How is afforestation a strategy that is going to help reduce soil erosion? Introduction of trees. Why are trees important in instance? They provide cover, which will make the soil less vulnerable, or soil will be less exposed to agents of erosion, or the trees, they reduce the wind speed. That is the rationale, such that there is less wind erosion. That's the idea that you can explain about the introduction of vegetation to a given area in an attempt to reduce soil erosion. Then the next question is talking about conventional energy sources in South Africa. Nuclear energy has been significant in South Africa's energy landscape. Right, we're going to look at the questions. The first question is saying, according to the graph, what percentage of South Africa's electricity is nuclear generated? Right, we're just supposed to check here and see that nuclear has got 4.9%. How does South Africa's uranium production support the proposal of 2 nuclear reactors? How does South Africa's uranium production support the proposal of 2 nuclear reactors? You can just check from the source information and try to figure out how those two are related. So in this instance, we are saying South Africa, if that one is the proposal is approved, it means South Africa is going to ultimately be in a position to support its own nuclear energy. And South Africa also, because it has a domestic supply or source, it has a domestic source of uranium. It makes it easier. Since uranium is locally available in South Africa, then it makes it easier. And also, with nuclear energy, remember, only a very small amount of uranium is needed. It does not use large volumes of uranium to produce such large quantities of energy. They use only a small amount. And also, it causes less pollution. For that matter, there's less carbonic footprint, which is beneficial for South Africa. Why is nuclear power production an option for the country? Why is nuclear power is supported for the country to achieve net zero emissions? Net zero emissions, we are looking at carbon footprint. The carbon footprint is less for nuclear power stations. And also, there's reduced fuel for mining and transportation. Uranium, since it's not needed in large quantities, which means the cost of mining will be reduced, and also transportation costs will be reduced compared to coal, which is needed in large volumes. And also, if you look at the amount of energy, we are saying the amount of energy that is produced is also a large amount of energy. Then a paragraph of 8 lines explain why South Africa favors coal as its main source of energy, despite the advantages of nuclear. Right, the one reason is that coal is abundant in South Africa. That is why they favor coal, because it's very abundant in South Africa. And also, we can look at existing infrastructure. South Africa has already invested in the infrastructure in coal mining. So diversifying away, given that there's infrastructure that has been developed in that particular sector, it becomes a challenge. And also low cost of extracting coal. Much of the coal is not extracted using deep level methods, it's extracted using the open cast. So it's cheaper to extract coal in South Africa. And also, if you check, there's need for new investments. If you are to diversify into coal, there's need for new investments in that particular area. And also, the issue of coal mining towns. If we diversify, there are some towns which develop because of coal mining towns, they are going to suffer. We're going to have typical problems. And also, it is going to result in large volumes of unemployment for people involved in the coal extraction and the generation process. So it's not easy to diversify completely from the given source of energy. Then question 2.5, refer to the graph extract on energy management in South Africa that we're going to answer the question. The question is saying, what is non-conventional energy? Non-conventional, we are saying they are not widely used. Conventional is common, something which is common, something which is from the book, but non-conventional is something which is not commonly used, or we can say it's considered as an alternative form of energy. And usually this non-conventional, we are referring to them as new and cleaner sources of energy compared to the traditional or the conventional methods, sources of energy. According to the graph, what percentage of global carbon dioxide from fossil fuels does South Africa contribute? We're just supposed to extract from the graph. South Africa's contribution, you check here, it's 1.7%. Give evidence from the extract that shows that South Africa's energy shift is influenced by a social factor. If we check from the text, it says, make sure that everyone has access to reliable and affordable energy. Make sure everyone, by everyone here it's social, has got a reliable and affordable energy. That's the social factor. And environmental factor, we are saying there's an aspect of trying to decarbonize. Trying to decarbonize its economy is related to the environment. And also it says South Africa is a major carbon emitter. Carbon emitter. Right. What makes wind and solar energy sources unreliable? Wind and solar energy, they are regarded unreliable. Why are they unreliable? Right. I think that is a common question that you can figure out. Can we safely rely on wind energy? Can we safely rely on solar energy as means of energy, as ways of getting energy? We cannot safely rely on those energy forms for a reason or for some reasons that are peculiar. Right. If we see, for example, solar energy, it cannot be relied upon in some other situations. For example, during cloudy days, it means the generation of the energy from solar will be limited because of the effect of the climatic and weather conditions prevailing at a given point in time. Or even if we look at wind. So we are saying it's irregular depending on weather conditions. The weather conditions can be unfavorable towards those forms of energy. If it's not on a windy day, it's a stable day, the wind is not blowing, then what is going to happen? Or we can also look at, they have got complex storage technologies. It's very difficult to store such forms of energy. And also it's difficult to balance supply and demand in real time. For example, solar. We might need more energy at night when there's no sun, and we need less energy during the day when the sun is shining. So it's impossible to balance the demand for such a product against real life situations. Explain the negative effects on the South African economy as it implements increased non-conventional energy sources. What are the challenges of focusing on non-conventional energy sources? Right, the cost. It's expensive to diversify into non-conventional energy sources. And also, we also need to engage in upgrades of the national grid for us to be able to incorporate those forms of energy onto the national grid to supply energy using those means. We need to have an upgrade of the national grid. And also it needs a training, which is also costly for the government. We need to engage in training programs to train the people who are going to generate and also the people who are going to make use of such technologies. And also we are looking at land requirements. For example, a solar farm, a wind farm, they take considerable large amount of land, which that land can be used productively in other sectors or for agricultural purposes. So those are some of the challenges that you can highlight, that we can discuss. Right, that takes us to the end of our question on section A, which is question number 2 on resources and sustainability. We're just going to discuss briefly on the map work. Since we don't have the map with us, we're just going to highlight on how you can answer those questions according to the geographical direction of answering map work questions. Johannesburg is in A or N direction from Mbombela. You can get that from the map information. You are encouraged to read the map information and actually find out. You read it and you get it from the map information. You get that from the map information. Or apparently it's in a westerly from Mbombela. Then the scale of the orthophoto map is dash times than the scale of the orthophoto map. We understand that it has a large scale and it's 5 times. So it's 5 times larger, which gives us the correct response as B. Then the grid, complete the grid reference or coordinates of the building you're supposed to figure out from the map. On topographical map, calculate the average gradient. You calculate the average gradient by determining the HE and the VI. VI is the difference in height between the two features. You just find the difference in height, you subtract the smaller from the bigger one, then you express it as the HE is given. Remember, the height will already be in meters here. Whatever you get there is already in meters. And what you are going to use for the HI is 1250 meters, which means you're supposed to use these values, the difference there, then you reduce this to equal to 1. You divide it by itself, divide the numerator by itself, and also divide the denominator by the value of the numerator, such that your ratio is 1:to something else. That is how you calculate the gradient. Difference in years, mean annual change. You're supposed to use the map information to calculate the provided question. Human-made feature at H, you're supposed to figure out where H is, and you're supposed to find out which human-made feature is there. And also remember that human-made features cannot be equated to natural features. Understand that human-made features are different from natural features. Then the portion of the crocodile in block B2 and it flows, whatever. If it's perennial, non-perennial, you check by the shading of the line. A perennial river is continuous. Perennial is continuous, and if it's a non-perennial, is broken. So you check and see on those ones. Then explain the negative impact that soil erosion caused by feature H can have on the river. Soil erosion on the river, how can it impact if we are having soil erosion close to a river? It can lead to disruption of aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic life is going to be disrupted. And also it can also lead to sediments in the river. The river can be silted because of sediment from the erosion. So you highlight on the issue of also pollutants, which can also affect the river, the quality of the water. Right, identify the main agricultural activity in the area. You're supposed to figure out, according to the map's reference, how is access to water encouraged agricultural productivity. You look at reliable water supplies, which facilitate agriculture. And also you look at the irrigation systems, if they are there, if they are adequate water, and also how can it affect. You also look the area marked X, you look at the main activity according to the map reference. How does unstable electricity or load shedding negatively affect the businesses? Right, if you are looking at the businesses in question and also you figure out how the business activities are impacted negatively by the load shedding. Like operation costs will increase, it is a negative impact. Operational costs, they will increase because of need for extra or alternative form of energy. And also trading hours are reduced, is another impact. Trading hours will be reduced. And also look at aspects like loss of revenue for the business. The business loses potential revenue because of load shedding, and also decline in profits. You can also highlight that. Right. Then GIS, which image A or B is vector data? Vector data is presented in lines, polygons, and points. So A is vector data. This is an image on B. Identify a natural line feature A. By identifying a natural line feature, you are supposed to figure it out. On A, I think that is a non-perennial river. It's a broken line. Why is B classified as vertical aerial photograph? Y is classified as a vertical aerial photograph. It was taken at a right angle, or it was taken at a perpendicular. Remember, we have different angles that are used to capture satellite, to capture aerial photographs. If it's captured on an aerial, it's captured at a, it's a vertical, it's taken at a right angle with the features. We can only see, for example, it's a building, we can only see the roof and not the walls of the building. So if you check those ones, you can only see the roof for those buildings. There is no side view of the features. So it's aerial because it was taken at a perpendicular angle, or at a right angle, or directly above the ground. Right, let's look at resolution. What is spatial resolution? When we are looking at spatial resolution, we are looking at the amount of detail. The amount of detail in an image, or the clarity of an image. How easy is it to see features on a picture? The ease with which we can see the picture, features on the picture, that's the resolution. So the image with a high or medium or low spatial resolution has the highest number of pixels. The one with the high is having the highest number of pixels, and the pixels must be smaller. The smaller and more the number of pixels, the clearer the image will be. How is the size of pixels influence the image with a low spatial resolution? An image with a low spatial resolution. And what will happen there is, the bigger the pixel, the less clearer an image is. So the size of the pixel here, it influences the clarity of the image. If an image has got pixels which are large, it means the clarity of that image will be compromised, because what makes the clarity of an image is the number of pixels. Remember, those pixels, we are saying those are small squares that make up an image. So if we enlarge, or for example, you capture a photo using a phone, and you keep on zooming the photo, you end up seeing that it becomes blurry and invisible. So if we enlarge the pixel, it makes the image less clear, and that is going to lead to low resolution of that particular image. So the bigger the pixel, the clearer, or the clarity of the image, or the less detail we can get from that particular image if the pixels are large. We only need to have an image with smaller pixels and a large number of pixels, such that it's very clear. The clarity comes from the number of pixels and also from the size of the pixels. Right, I think that takes us to the end of this discussion. This was just a discussion on Geography Paper 2 for you grade 11s. I hope it is going to assist you in preparing you for the final examinations, which is coming in due course. And I understand your coming year is a year of very serious study, which must be prepared in as early as now. You must develop a culture of studying from now as you prepare for your metric coming year in the coming year. So we hope that this discussion is going to assist you in preparing for your examinations, such that you score as high as is possible in your final examinations for grade 11 and in preparation for your next metric grade. With that being said and done, I think we have come to the end of our discussion. We'll meet again in other discussions to come. Your host in Geography. Thank you for watching.